You start practicing the Dharma, but then what happens is all these demons get stirred up in our psyche. I don't know if you've had that experience, any of you yet, but it's not uncommon. It's like we start to say, oh, this is great. You just sit and follow the breath. That's good. I'm going to get really calm now. I'm going to get like really zen. You do that for a little while, and then you start discovering how unruly the mind is, and all the trouble, in a way, that your mind can create for you. So what I'm going to do this morning is say more about the theme. I do not understand, I do not know. And we'll have, so I'll say a bit about that, then we'll have a bit of meditation, and then we'll have time for a little tea break, and then I'll say some more, and we'll do a bit more meditation. So I'll just give you a bit of a shape for the morning. Before I go into that, I just wanted to say a little bit about the retreat centre here, because I'm aware that some of you, it's your first time at Vajrasana. So I was part of the little team who were, in a way, overseeing the building of Vajrasana. Actually, I did the least of any of them. However, I was in a lot of meetings. Before we actually got the really, really good architects who built the place, before we enlisted them, we came up in the team with a sort of vision for what we wanted for a retreat centre. Because in effect, we were building, apart from the farmhouse, it was basically building a new retreat centre. And the way we envisioned the retreat centre was one of a journey. So a journey to the Buddha. Which is a journey to enlightenment, which is, of course, what we're trying to do in our spiritual lives. So in a way, we wanted to sort of have that somehow as part of what happens when you come to the retreat centre. So, of course, you come to the car park, which is right out there on the sort of far periphery. And then you walk down the drive and you come to what's in effect the main sort of living area. So you've got that great big living room, dining room, kitchen, and then the big courtyard, which we refer to as the Sangha Courtyard. So the Sangha being the spiritual community. So that's the sort of place where you sort of, in a way, you meet each other, you meet the Sangha, meet the spiritual community. There's that lovely big courtyard to hang out in, particularly when the weather's fine. You can put your outdoor shoes aside, and then you can just go everywhere in your indoor shoes, so you don't have to worry about that. When we did eventually get the architects involved, I was talking to one of the chief architects, Cindy, and they had the idea of actually coming on a weekend retreat on the old Vajrasana, just so they could see what it was like to be on retreat. And I was talking to her afterwards, and she was saying to me, yeah, you said there's a lot of taking off on and off of shoes, but I really didn't get it until I came here on retreat, because you're going in and out of shrine room, but also in the old place, you were going in and out of buildings, so you're constantly taking on and off shoes. So yeah, you can leave your shoes behind, or rather just, have your indoor shoes and just get everywhere. So you've got that Sangha Courtyard, but then you come into, it's almost like a sort of gate. In fact, we did think of having an actual gate there. You sort of come to a gate, and then you've got the Stupa and the Akshobhya courtyards. So we think of that as being moving into the sacred precinct. So we're sort of the shrine room and those two courtyards we think of as the sacred precinct. And in a way, it's really nice having the Stupa Courtyard and the Akshobhya Courtyard. Partly they're both very beautiful, but in a way, it's an opportunity to sort of slow down and move into a more contemplative space before you actually come into the shrine room itself. So you're sort of, in a way, changing gear from the more sort of interactive, chatty Sangha sort of space that you've got with the Sangha Courtyard and the living room and the dining room into a more meditative space. And it's really good, if you've got time just to, say before a meditation, to circumambulate the stupa a few times, to sit and look at the very beautiful Akshobhya, and that's the Buddha sitting with the on the pond just out there, to sort of just allow your mind to settle, to in a way prepare for meditation before finally coming into here and meeting the relatively enormous Buddha, certainly more enormous than the Buddha was before. Just to say also about the stupa. So the stupa has got ashes of one of the founder, Sangharakshita's main teachers, Dado Rinpoche, as well as ashes of some order members who've died, and you can see their names are written in gold on the wall. So it's also, the stupa is also particularly associated with those people, with death, impermanence. So again, a very sort of place for reflection. So yeah, I just wanted to just give you a little, just particularly those of you who are new, just give you a bit of a flavour of, in a way, Vajrasana and sort of what it's about. So let's go on to our theme. So back in Padmasambhava Day 1979, a few years ago, our teacher Sangharakshita Bhante gave a talk at the London Buddhist Centre on that Padmasambhava Day, which is quite, certainly amongst the order, quite a well-known talk. In the talk, which unfortunately I wasn't, that was before I came along, he talked about the Buddha, the Guru, and the Terton. So I'm just going to say a little bit about those, see a bit about what he said about in the talk. So the Buddha, the historical Buddha, as represented here, in a way presents, you could say, from this perspective, presents the teaching in a general way. So presents the teaching in terms of sort of well-known Buddhist teachings like the Four Noble Truths, the Threefold Way, the 12 Links of Conditionality. So teaches those sort of, if you like, those sort of general teachings. And then you've got the Guru, and Padmasambhava is the Guru par excellence. So the Guru, as I was saying last night, Padmasambhava, he converted the gods or the demons of Tibet when he was invited to Tibet. So the gods or the demons in this context are like those, what we would probably think of as the sort of inner, untamed forces, psychic energies, repressed energies, that get written large in the world. So forces like the drive for fame, the drive for wealth, the drive for revenge, and other, you can work out that, think about those for yourself. That, yes, as I say, they're forces within us, but they also get acted out, if you like, in large in the world. They sort of tap into, if you like, the collective unconscious. So what the Guru does is the Guru converts those energies to the Dharma. So it's a bit like saying so Padmasambhava, what Padmasambhava does is he doesn't stop those energies, because there's energy in them, that we need those energies, but converts them to the Dharma. So it's a bit like, the way you could think about it is, you start practicing the Dharma. We sometimes say we practice it. We start with our head. We sometimes say you come out of the water head first. So you start getting some kind of understanding, say, of the Four Noble Truths, to give a typical thing, or the threefold way. So you get some understanding of that. You start practicing the Dharma, but then what happens is all these demons get stirred up in our psyche. I don't know if you've had that experience, any of you, yet, but it's not uncommon. It's like we start to say, oh, this is great. You just sit and follow the breath. That's good. I'm going to get really calm now. I'm going to get like really zen. You do that for a little while, and then you start discovering how unruly the mind is, and all the trouble, in a way, that your mind can create for you. So in a way, those are the things that start getting stirred up, and you need, if you like, stronger medicine. And in a way, Padmasambhava is that stronger medicine. So sometimes it's both the spiritual path is divided into two main phases: the path of vision and the path of transformation. So the path of vision is where you get some real understanding of what the spiritual life is about. You are maybe drawn to the Buddha, to the ideal of enlightenment. You get something opens in you, that you see something a bit more deeply, but then you need to transform the rest of you on the basis of that vision, of that understanding. And in a way, that's the hard work, as it were. There's quite a well-known book by Jack Cornfield called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. So I always feel cheated, because I don't think I ever had the ecstasy. But anyway, I was just like washing all the time. But anyway, it's the same sort of idea, that you have vision, and then on the basis of that, there's transformation. So the terton, just to complete this bit about the talk, the terton is what I was referring to last night as the revealers of treasures. So Padmasambhava hides these treasures, physical treasures or termas, mental treasures or termas, and then therefore they're more specific teachings, if you like, for different conditions, for later conditions. And sometimes, I mean, there's lots of different ways one can think about that, but just to give you a little idea of one way of thinking about a mind terma. I mean, certainly, mind termas can appear in a big way and sort of come out of deep meditation, but I think they can also come in a small way, where, for example, I remember one time I was talking to somebody, and they told me, I was quite relatively new, and he was saying about the importance of being responsible for one's own mental states. Now, I'm sure I'd heard that many times before, or at least a number of times before, but suddenly on that day, it just struck home. I don't know if you've had that experience where you've maybe heard a teaching before, but on a particular day, it just strikes home. It's a bit like a depth charge. It's gone in there somewhere, but hasn't really had any effect. But then suddenly it comes to light, and you suddenly think, oh, I see what's being got at. In this advice that we're getting from Padmasambhava, his advice to the tertons, to the revealers of the Dharma, what he's saying, so I'll just give you the full phrase. He says, let these three expressions, I do not have I do not understand, I do not know, be repeated again and again. This is the heart of my advice. So what he's in a way saying here is that don't think you've mastered the Dharma just because you've got a bit of understanding of it. So, as I said, it's like we have this path of vision, and it's sometimes easy to say, oh, right, okay, that's fine, I've got it now. But actually, there's probably a lot further to go. It's like, we of course know all things are impermanent on one level, but every time we feel disappointed or let down because something changed, it shows we don't know. We haven't understood. So I'm just going to look at these three phrases a little bit in turn. So the first one, I do not have. There's a lovely line in the Dhammapada, one of my favourite Buddhist texts, where a verse where the Buddha says this: the spiritually immature person vexes himself, thinking, sons are mine, riches are mine. He himself is not his own even. How then sons? How then riches? So when the Buddha is saying riches, the spiritually immature person doesn't have riches. Riches in a way, it just means, if you like, material possessions, we could say. So of course material possessions can get lost, they can get broken, they can get stolen. We can't ultimately hold on to them. And of course when we try and hold on to them, that can cause us simply to suffer. The more tightly we try and hold on to our possessions, the more we're going to suffer. Similarly, when he says sons are not his, in other words, people who are dear to us. So people who are dear to us, they change, they move away, they die, and we can try and control other people, but of course it doesn't work ultimately. They are their own person, and this is two of my particularly friends I particularly love in the order. One of them managed to go off to Toronto to live, and the other to Brisbane. It's like I couldn't get further away from me and further apart. Unless you do a around the world trip, you can't even visit them on the same trip. So same thing. The more we attach to people who are dear to us, or the more we try and control and fix them, the more we'll suffer. And then the Buddha says, he himself is not his own. In other words, we don't even own ourselves. We have a body which, we have some degree of control over. We can, to some extent, move our body around, etc. But of course, we can't stop the body from aging. We can't completely stop the body from becoming ill, becoming sick, and we're all going to die. That's, of course, guaranteed. So we don't own our bodies. We don't completely own our bodies. And the same with our mind. We don't even own our mind. Of course, we can train the mind. That's what we try and do in meditation. But so much is beyond our control. Again, you may have noticed this in meditation. All these thoughts, emotions, images, memories just pop unbidden into our mind. I don't know if you've had the experience of you're in meditation and the bell rings, or maybe not even the bell rings, but you're sort of in the middle of the meditation and your mind's going sort of thing. Maybe yours doesn't do that, but anyway, this is my version. And you just sort of open your eyes and everybody else is looking very like still, and you think, I want that mind. So again, same sort of thing. We don't own our minds. We don't even own our minds, let alone our bodies. So this is, I do not have possessions, I do not have other people, I do not even have myself. And then the next phrase from Padmasambhava is, I do not understand. In a way that very much follows from that. To the extent we think we do own our bodies, our minds, other people, our possessions, to that extent we don't understand. One of the teachings that draws this out is called the 4 viparyasas, or topsy-turvy views. It's a lovely phrase, topsy-turvy views. So we get things upside down. So things that are by nature to change, which is everything, we behave as though it were permanent. So we've got things the wrong way round. Again, things that we think have got a fixed essence, like myself. I think there's a little Paramabandhu sitting in here operating the machinery, that's the same Paramabandhu that was, 30 odd years ago when I was ordained. And so there's the same little chap sitting in there all that time. Of course there isn't. There's no such fix. There's just a changing process. But to the extent that I relate to myself as though there were a fixed self, again, the extent that I've got it wrong, that I haven't understood, and that relates to the third viparyasa, that I will suffer. So the things that we think we can get, that's going to give us lasting satisfaction, lasting happiness, again, is likely to cause us suffering. And the more that we think we'll get pleasure, satisfaction from something, or the more, in a way, that we rely on it. So the more we rely on that bar of chocolate to make us feel good, the more we're going to get into trouble. So it's not to say, don't enjoy your bar of chocolate. But it's more about how much you rest on it, how much you rely on it, how much you think it's really going to do the trick, that it's going to deliver the complete satisfaction. And again, when you say it out loud, it sounds a bit silly. You probably, no one's going to, if I say, who thinks, a bar of chocolate is going to give you complete, lasting satisfaction? I don't suppose anybody is going to put their hand up and say, oh yes, I think so. Or maybe you might say, well, it depends which brand it is. But so when you say it out loud, of course, you think, no. But actually, that is often how we behave. We turn towards things, we sort of rely on things that aren't actually reliable in that sort of way. And so we get let down, and then, of course, we suffer. But also, it's not just that. What's interesting, the fourth viparyasa is phrased in terms of we mistake the ugly for the beautiful. So I think one way you can think about this is we can sometimes put up with things, particularly mental states, and thinking, okay, well, this is how life is. When actually we could have much better mental states. The Buddha says something like, when you've experienced, well, particularly the beauty of liberation, then you really know what beauty is. So it's not that our, sort of everyday mental states, if you like, are sort of bad, as it were. It's just that we can put up with them when actually what we can experience through spiritual practice, through meditation and through vision, through understanding, is something that's much, much more beautiful. So again, it's like we do not understand, we do not see that there's, again, to quote a book title, there's a deeper beauty that's potentially available to us. And then, I do not know. So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, particularly, we don't know the future. I think probably the last 18 months has shown us that. A year ago last spring, I was originally due to be leading a 4-month ordination course, and then because of Brexit, it was going to be a 3-month ordination course, because you can only go for 90 days if you're a British citizen to the EU, because then the retreat was held in Spain. And then, of course, COVID hit, and then it just got pushed out of the water and postponed for a year. And then it got postponed again. It did eventually happen, but again, that's just sort of one of so many examples that I'm sure we've all experienced in different ways of, we think the future's going to look like this, and then a pandemic shows up, and it changes all. But that's just a big example of that is how life is. We don't actually know the future. We have an idea about the future, but we don't actually know. So we don't know the future. We don't know other people, even the ones we live with, perhaps especially the ones we live with. You could say we don't know. We get, you get used to relating in habitual ways, and then there's whole bits of oneself that you don't find out about. It's a bit like, it's sometimes very tragic, isn't it? I mean, I've known a number of people where, in a relationship where a partner has just suddenly offed and left, and the other partner was just not expecting it, had no idea, that was then, understandably very, very upset by that. But it's just sort of, again, a bit more of a dramatic example of that thing of with other people, we do not know them. We might think we know them, but we don't know them. And then we don't know the world. The sort of external world. I've recently been reading some of Carlo Rovelli's books on modern physics, which I can't pretend to even understand, even though I'll say a couple of things of what I've tried to understand from them. But in a way, it really does show you how, our common sense understanding of the external world is mistaken. It sort of works up to a point as a sort of approximation. But, for example, we think of time as an independent thing, that time is, marching on, we have the past, we have now, and then there's the future that's to come. But at least according to Rovelli, according to modern physics, just for example, this idea of the present or now is a localized phenomenon. So if you've got a friend on Proxima b, which apparently is about 4 light years away, the present doesn't, and you would say, what are they doing now? Like now here, that is a meaningless question. Anyway, get your head around that if you can. And similarly, that time passes at different rates depending where you are, how fast you're moving, how near you are to a big mass. And at a very small scale, there's neither space nor time. So again, try and get your head around that. Anyway, that's, you know, I quite like reading because it just sort of slightly bamboozles the mind, as it were, in terms of makes you sort of see, oh, I don't really understand this. But what one say from a Buddhist perspective is we don't know the world in the sense that we only have perceptions. So we don't, from our own experience, you know, I can touch this, but actually all I'm getting is a perception, this sort of metal plinth here. So, you know, I get a perception of smoothness, of cool, the sort of dark brownish colour. But those are all perceptions. I don't actually know what's really going on here from its own side, as it were. And again, we can make, you know, rough guesses that kind of work. You know, I sort of know if I push against or possibly pull one of those brown handle things there, I'll be able to get out. Whereas probably if I do that with this, it's not going to work. So, you know, we can do approximations which help us work our way around the world, but we don't actually know from our own experience. All we have is our perceptions, and what's really going on beyond our perceptions is a mystery. So these are these three phrases: I do not have, I do not understand, I do not know. So what we'll do in just a moment is a little meditation, and what I'm going to invite you to do, we'll just sort of have a open period of meditation for about 20 minutes, where we'll just sit. If you want, you can follow the breath. But what I invite you to do is to pick one of these phrases and just repeat it to yourself every so often. I do not have, I do not understand, I do not know. So just pick one of them, like I do not have. Or if you want, you can pick all three, that's fine. But if you notice that your mind is tending towards moving towards either people or things, cravings, we refer to it in Buddhism, sort of desire. So there's a sense of desire for somebody or something, then you might want to try saying the phrase, I do not have. If you find that your mind's going off into planning, you know, like, oh, what are we going to have for lunch? Oh, shall I have a walk this afternoon? Oh, I wonder who I could have a walk with. And that sort of thing. So if your mind's doing that, then you could try, I do not know, because we don't know the future. And if you find that your mind's going into aversion, to ill will, to dislike or irritation, maybe try the phrase, I do not understand.
Great, so I hope you enjoyed that Dharma Night talk. So if you did enjoy it, if you're enjoying our videos, I just want to ask you or encourage you to think about making a donation to the Brixton Buddhist Community. We're a UK charity that relies completely on your donations to run everything here. And if this was a class, a meditation class, there'd be a donation bowl that you could just put in £10 at the end of the night to help support the activities. But as you're watching this online, I just want to ask you to think about making an online donation. If you've watched 4 or 5 videos this month, maybe you might want to think about giving £10. So there's a link in the description below where you can go to our website and make a donation. And if you want to keep giving, you don't want to worry about making that donation every month, well, you could just set up a standing order, a monthly standing order. That would be really, really helpful. I want to suggest something of the region of maybe £10 or £20 a month if you're able to do that, and that would be really, really helpful and help us keep producing videos like this one. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself.